All right, so we are live with James Wedmore. Well, technically we're not live. We are being recorded because I wasn't sure if I could go live with James because right now I am in the final stretch of my pregnancy and I really love James and what he brings to this world and what he's given to me so much that I wanted to make sure that I could get this message out to all of you, whether or not I was in labor or in the hospital or with a newborn baby. So that was the intention of this, is to be able to create a space so that I can still deliver really powerful information regardless of what my status is.
Well, I'm excited to be here, and I really love what you're doing, Emily, and I'm very grateful that you are taking the time. So thank you for having me.
So I'll do a quick little introduction. So James Wedmore, he is the creator of Business by Design. He is the host of the Mind Your Business podcast, which if you had the pleasure of listening to episode 155, yours truly.
The best episode.
I don't want to call it that, but that's what everybody else is saying. And if you follow me at all, you know that I'm part of James's high-level mastermind, the Inner Circle, which I absolutely love. This past August, I had the great pleasure of speaking at his mastermind event for the Next Level, which is another wonderful group that he leads. His past was he was teaching YouTube videos to people, teaching them how to create videos, and his business started to really take off and grow, and he started to really incorporate mindset and teaching people a whole new way of running their business and their lives. I found James through his course Business by Design when it was in sort of like the middle stages of being beta and being able to be launched, and it's totally transformed my life and my business. So that's why I wanted just to share a little bit with him, and I'm sure you have a really great bio that's more formal than what I just mustered together.
Nope. I'm just going to transcribe what you said and turn that into my new and improved bio. That's better than I could have said. So thank you. And I will go on record for saying that you've definitely under-communicated the significance of your role at our retreat. Emily didn't just speak there, which to me, that is like, oh, you came on stage for an hour. This is a full 2-day event, and Emily co-facilitated and led a group of 90 entrepreneurs with me, and I couldn't have done it without her. So I think you did more than just speak at an event. And it was awesome. Like, people obviously loved you. That was no surprise, but really got some profound, extraordinary results. And I think that's something I'm always excited about is bringing both what we could label as the left brain and the right brain into business and integrating those two halves and taking this holistic approach to entrepreneurship, really.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. The Next Level event was extraordinary, and to be honest, people were crying. They were crying, and I joke with people like, yeah, I make people cry. It's the work that I do, but it's a great pleasure to be able to help connect people so deeply on that level in their business too. So we're going to get into the 5 common beliefs that are going to keep you broke, and there might be more than 5, but
we'll have to see.
I just love opening this conversation because I feel like I fell into all of these ruts myself. So that's why I'm excited. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and we'll just get this party started.
Awesome. So before we get into these beliefs, there's 2 things that I really want to point out, which I think will be the most important thing for your audience, Emily. And the first one is, I'm coming from a premise that I believe most people, the reason why they struggle, like there's all these stats now, right? Like 540,000 new people are entering the entrepreneurship, starting their own business industry. They're leaving the job force, they're leaving their career, and they're starting business. That's a lot of new entrepreneurs. Yet 8 out of 10 will fail in the next 18 months. These are stats you can find on Forbes.com. And that's the thing, right? Success doesn't really seem to be common. Yet we're applying what we think is common sense, our own common sense, to that, and it's not working. And that's because I believe that most of us, if not all of us, are simply not wired for entrepreneurship. We're not wired for business. We don't think like entrepreneurs. And if you don't think like an entrepreneur, don't expect you're going to take the actions of an entrepreneur and ultimately get the results of an entrepreneur. And so that's the first piece. And the second piece that I would really love for people to get, and this is really becomes the through line of my message and how I help my students, is this entire idea of how you see business. Two things. How you see business is not actually business. What you think of business, how you perceive business, how you experience business, what you say about business is not how business actually is. It's your perception and your interpretation of business, but it's not how business actually is. However, how you see business will determine what is ultimately possible for you. For example, if you think business is hard, could it be any other way? If you think business takes 14-hour days, could it be any other way? If you think selling is something that's scary or immoral, right? Or selfish, are you going to be doing a lot of selling, right? No. So how we interpret and experience our perception is then formed by our thoughts about it and our beliefs. And one definition of beliefs that I have that I love is that a belief is just a thought that you continue to think, right? Mm-hmm. So, we're the creator of our own thoughts, so we can choose new ones. But what we have to understand, and I really want to come from a huge place of compassion. Now, I was very what's the word I'm looking for? Inclined towards entrepreneurship from a very young age. Mm-hmm. I started businesses, even like an eBay business when I was 14, 15 years old. So I was selling stuff on the internet when I was 15, right. Back in late 90s. I still use AOL dial-up to sell stuff. Okay. So that's how far back we're going. But to offer some compassion and say, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing broken. I don't want people continuing to wonder, why is the latest funnel, strategy, tactic, bot, software, tool, shiny red object not working, right? And it must be something else. It must be this tool. It must be this funnel. I must get this. And we're searching out externally for all these things that we think is going to fix our circumstances, fix our business. And we tend to never look at ourselves. And one of the favorite things I love to say is that your business is simply a reflection of you, which, sometimes we don't like what we see when we look in the mirror. But if your business isn't where you'd like it to be, most people tend to never look at themselves. They tend to never focus their attention or that mirror on them and say, who am I being and how did I create this? What got me here? How did I just wind up with this, right? And that kind of becomes the last place we look. And I'm going to say it should be the first place we look and the most significant place that we look, because there's that one, I believe it's the Wayne Dyer quote, which I love, is when you change the way you think about things, the things you think about change. Yeah. So if how we see business determines what's possible for us, well, we might want to change the way we think about business, the way we see business, and ultimately, business can become a lot more easy. And I'm going to give one last example before we get into this, and I'll check in with you. But I see so many people struggling, and some people make it. Some people struggle. I did for 5 years, okay? And then they make it. And then they look back and they say, you got to struggle to be successful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
They can't figure out what it was that actually attributed to their success. Yet we all have examples of people, and your story is one of them, where you let go of the struggle, you surrendered to that and said, no, thank you. And you found an easier path. Mm-hmm. But let me ask you this. And this is obviously for all your listeners too. If I gave you a puzzle and I said, hey, it's a 1,000-piece puzzle. I'm going to put the time limit on and go put it together. Go. You get really excited. Like, oh, I haven't done a puzzle in a long time. But then if I said, well, wait a second, I'm actually going to take away the box so you don't get the picture and put a little wrench in your spokes. I'm going to turn all the pieces upside down. Now, if that's all you had was brown cardboard, weird shapes, and you had to put a puzzle together, that would be, I don't care who you are, that would be one of the hardest puzzles you've ever built.
Right.
But if you're doing that and that's the only puzzle you ever built, are you now going to tell me that making puzzles and building puzzles is hard? Or did you just make it harder than it needed to be? Because if we turned over the pieces and I gave you the box and maybe I gave you a few tips on like, let's start with the corners and let's build out the end, the little shapes that are very unique, wouldn't things become a little bit easier?
Totally.
And so, of course it would. And so that's what I'm offering here, is that most people are looking at business and looking at this way to build a business without the right plan, without the right strategy, but really ultimately the wrong way of thinking,
Yep.
and the wrong beliefs. And that's what I want to get into today with you.
I love that. And it's perfect as a piggyback to my story that I've just shared, the first two parts of, taking a leap. And I talked about how I was following these old business models and I was like, kind of just grasping at straws. And it was, there's all these stories and all these beliefs around it. And it was BBD that really kind of shook it up and started to change my beliefs. Cause I had been doing the inner work and I had been struggling, but it was like, nothing really fit. And all of a sudden, and I say this all the time, which is, it's like suddenly somebody turned the lights on for me. And I think you give a great, that analogy of the puzzle, like doing those
turning the pieces over. Yeah. And then of course, what if I said, hey, this puzzle doesn't have to be 1,000 pieces. What if it was 20? Right. What if it was 10? Right. And quite frankly, there's only, if we're looking at an online business, there's only 2 pieces to the puzzle. You can make it 50, you can make it 100. And again, then you can tell yourself the story that I can't build the business because I don't have all the pieces. I hear that all the time and it's effing nonsense. How many pieces are there specifically? How do you even know how many pieces there are specifically, right? We'll get into that in a little bit. There's only 2 pieces. Build an audience, sell them what they want. Build an audience, sell them what they want. Attract your tribe, your people, and listen to what they want and give it to them. That is it. You want to make it more complicated and say, but what about the software? What about the tech? What about this site? And what about social media? What about ads? And what about... That's fine. Go make things harder for yourself. Turn the puzzle back over upside down and get rid of the picture and struggle. And then you can say, see, James, you have to struggle to be successsul. Right. So, it's that whole Henry Ford quote of whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So whatever you think about business or whatever you say about business, you're going to be right. You're going to have that experience. It's your external world will match your internal representation.
Yep.
Okay. So however you're thinking and believing business to be, marketing to be, building an audience, selling, all of that is how it must be for you. So we can go outside in the external world and change all these things that you can't really change anyway, that you don't have any control over, or we can change what's inside here. And if anyone's just listening and not viewing, I'm pointing to my mind. Okay. So can we dive in, and then I'll share these, and then Emily, like the more you can co-create these with me and like share from your personal experience would be awesome, because I want to give as specific examples as possible.
Oh yeah.
The first one is really just this mistake or this big vital decision that is vastly overlooked by most people, most entrepreneurs, and then they just kind of get present to how hard they've been working, how long they've been working. They thought business was this thing to give them freedom, and they realize they're working longer and harder and getting paid less than the job they used to have. And so there's this business they wound up with. And most struggling entrepreneurs are not even noticing the decision they made with the business model they signed up for. And most business models are broken.
Right.
Like there's a lot of broken business models, and it is what it is. There's good models. There's models that work for you. There's models that won't work for you. There's that, this is the model that works for me. But for most people, it's not even something they consider. It's almost like they're just taking the mindset of what I say, just being an employee, and they're saying, I'm not going to have a boss,
right,
and an hourly salary compensation. So now, therefore, I'm in business for myself.
Right.
And usually this becomes a very unscalable, unrealistic business model. And we end up trading time for dollars. We end up realizing that, okay, I'm providing a service, whether it's one-on-one coaching or doing work for somebody or creating something for them. And I'm creating this at a 1-to-1 ratio. There's no leverage. There's no scalability. But then we forget that there's the execution of that coaching or that service where you are actually being the technician or the employee in your business and not even realizing that there's another role that you're not filling, which is the what we call the visionary or the digital CEO of that business. And so we spend all of our time just in that hourly salary technician role and then wonder why we're not growing.
Right.
And
well,
then,
I was in that loop endlessly. And I was taking advice from other people who were also in that endless loop. And we thought there was this belief that, you know, you had to have a lot of money to hire a team and to do better things and to do more and to scale. And we didn't have money. So you didn't have money. So you had to do all these little things. And all those little things just kept you so broke.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we want to encourage you, and this is what I encourage my students, is to first and foremost pause for a moment and look at your business. And even this is like revolutionary for a lot of people. Look at your business as this separate entity, and this separate entity is a machine. Okay. Now, what most people are already doing, which I've been alluding to, is that they're not even looking at their business as this separate thing. They're just looking at themselves as working for themselves. Like it's just a job, but you don't have one boss. You've now got several.
Right.
Okay. Now that's fine. But if you're doing that and then you're going, okay, but I want to generate more money, more sales and work less, you can't do it because you're still trading time for dollars, right? And it's just an unscalable 1-to-1, no leverage business model. And so if we begin to look at this, your business as something outside of you, which can be really hard to do when you're a personal brand, but I would encourage you to do it. And even if it's just for a few minutes and look at it as a machine. The machine has an input and an output. There's the input of your time and your energy, which I call energon cubes, right? It's the combination of the effort or energy, and it's not just physical effort. It's your creativity. It's your answering those emails. It's those doing those. It's all the stuff that you do. And then there's the output, which is sales, leads, revenue, profit, customers, all the stuff that it generates. Okay. And when we begin to look at it as a machine, the game becomes very simple. How do we decrease the input while increasing the output? Yeah. Most people are never even looking at that. They're saying, I want to make more money. Gotta hustle, gotta work harder, gotta work longer, put in the extra hours, sacrifice my family. That's not important now. It'll be important later. But it later comes, right? Because it's still never enough. And you're working from a broken model.
Totally.
So if someone's paying you $50 an hour and you're working 8 hours a day and you only get paid in the fulfillment, right? So if you do one-on-one coaching, you're only getting paid for the fulfillment of that coaching. What about when you send them the bill, right? The invoice. What about the marketing? You're not getting paid for all that. So you're wearing all these other hats. You don't get paid for those, but you're getting paid for this one-on-one thing. That's why people experience making less and working more than when they were working for somebody else. So it's a broken model. So instead, we want to look at leverage. We want to look at scalability, right? And we want to start to say no to all those one-to-one trading time for dollar activities.
Yep. And I'm glad that you asked people or encourage them to take a moment just to pause and look at that, to decrease all that input and increase the output. It's like, that could be revolutionary for some people. Yes.
And now there's when we look at it as a machine, if we look at your business as a machine, I have 5 gears. If we're using our machine analogy here, there's 5 gears that create leverage. Like you know, if you turn one crank and it turns all the other pulleys and wheels, kind of like a bicycle or something, it becomes very easy to turn one, and it's generating all this power, right? So you're creating this leverage in this business, and there's 5 gears that we use in our business and what we teach our students, which we can get into if we have time. It's absolutely what my free training does. It goes and looks into all these different ways we can create leverage into our business. But in order to do that, we have to start saying no to the unleveraged activities. It's just not realistic if you're doing $50 to $100 one-on-one consulting sessions to scale more. You are limited by the time you have in the day, the hours you have in the day, the amount of days in a week, the amount of weeks in a month, months in a year, but you're also limited by your energy. Mm. And I think Emily and I can both speak to this very heavily. When you get what your role truly is as an entrepreneur, one of the big values that we put to the world is our innovation, our message, our creativity. And if you're always on empty, if you're always tapped dry, the gas tank's on empty, where's your value? Where's that innovation coming from? What's going to fuel that creativity? Yeah. Nothing. I know that when I've been working too much and then I get on a call like this, it's going to be a crappy interview. It's just going to be bad because I need to personally recharge. So if the only way I can make money is by working 10 hours a day, I'm actually going to be costing myself much more in the long run. And again, we're going to get into the next one, which just bleeds perfectly into this, which is the big mistake of thinking hard work and your effort is your competitive.
All of a sudden you froze. Uh-oh. Come back. All right, we're good. We're back.
Okay, so that really brings us into the second one. And this is something I see people just really carrying over from an employee mindset. And it's this idea of relying on hard work and effort as your competitive advantage. And this was definitely my biggest one. I learned from my parents, and I'm so grateful for them to have the hardest work ethic in the world. But I saw that they were kind of workaholics, and I became one very fast. And I was realizing that the harder and longer I worked, it wasn't actually doing anything. It wasn't growing my business. And if we look at it from this idea of cause and effect, I'm here to say that if you're an entrepreneur and you're building your own business, from a cause and effect standpoint, hard work does not cause the success that you want. And here's this example of what it feels like if you've been spinning your wheels, working really hard, relying on your hard work. It's this analogy, maybe some of you have heard of this, of the bumblebee that's trapped in the house, and it just keeps banging its head against the window, right? And it's just like, if I get a running start, if I try harder, if I push harder, if I keep banging my head against the window, I want so badly to get out that maybe eventually I'll do it. We all know that that's a losing battle, right? But that's kind of how it feels sometimes. We just keep relying on effort. I'll just keep working. I'll do it longer. I'll push it harder, right? And if the bee would have just like chilled the F out and would have just let go, just kind of like stopped for a moment and pulled back, the bee would have noticed that there was a crack in the window just 3 feet to his left or to her left.
And you know what? I've been talking a lot with my mentorship students about this, about how much you absolutely must surrender and allow to build time for integration, because you think that if I stop, this machine will stop, everything will stop, everyone dies, I'll be broke, you go into that reptilian brain of that survival, gotta get into the bunker, get all the cans, nothing's good. If I stop, all hell breaks loose. But that pause is actually where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
That is where you get to see everything clearly. And I actually had one of my clients say on a call this week, I just realized I was dealing with a family crisis so much this week. I didn't have a chance to work on my business at all. And I've booked more high-level calls this week than ever before. So
that's not uncommon. I hear that all the time.
Yep.
All the time. Here's the thing. When you start to get what the actual role and responsibility of an entrepreneur is, it really has very little to do with work.
Right.
It's like what we were just talking about the innovation, the creativity, the networking, the relationships, the connections. And so you can go stay on the factory floor and keep your head down and put this nut into that bolt and this nut onto this bolt, onto the conveyor belt. But who's looking out? Who's looking up? Who's got the vision? Who's leading the direction of the company, of the business, right? If your head's down the whole time, you're not going to see opportunities. You're not going to see relationships that you can, foster and build with potential people, etc. So something I learned long ago, and it's been the most life-changing thing. And not only is it life-changing, it's a new belief and thought that we can adopt, but it's absolutely true in my experience. And this is this idea or belief that the less I do, the more I make. The less I do, the less I work, the less I am the employee or the technician in my business, the more I make. And we keep looking at the growth that our business has, and I would say I'm working less, but it really depends. Like, I take more vacation time, I play more. I'm still like working, right? I like, this is me working, guys, just so you know. Like, okay, me doing an hour-long interview, so maybe I'm doing more of these, but I'm not grinding away like I was addicted to Adderall. Let me try and build a website. Let me do this all myself. Let me write all these articles. Let me do the myself. Yet and obviously there's no more, I didn't find a way to add more hours to the day, but the revenue, the sales, the people we impact has gone up exponentially higher.
Yep.
And the workload hasn't. So what's going on there, right? The less I do, the more I make. So to recap, the first thing to look at is, do we have the right business machine or model that is conducive to leverage and scalability? Or are you just doing the one-to-one? Okay. And then the second thing is to understand that the biggest mistake we can be making is relying on our work efforting. Money does not come from effort. Okay, that's only when you're an employee and your boss wants you to work harder and then pays you for that is the only time that we perceive that to be the case. If we really want to go woo-woo on you, money, just like everything else, is energy. And when you align your energy to that same frequency as money, guess what? You make more money. So no amount of hard work, no amount of hustle, no amount of worry, stress, push, force, jam the square peg in the round hole will ever compensate for your lack of alignment with abundance, alignment with success, alignment with money, alignment with what your customers want and need. I can't tell you how many times people go into a launch or a promotion or a Facebook Live or a podcast, they're stressed out about their business, they're freaking out, they're behind the scenes, like internally, and then they just can't even connect it. Like, dude, your people don't want that. They're not going to be attracted to the podcast of, wow, I love how this person's just freaking out and stressed all the time, and I want to be like. And that's another like big thing that just kind of gets me is people are always asking how to build an audience,
right?
And when they're asking that question again, they're looking for the external things outside of them.
Right.
They never ask, who do I need to be to attract a following? You can't build a following without being a leader. Followers follow leaders, not other followers.
Right. Right.
But what funnel do I use? And should I do an ebook or a landing page or how many Instagram posts to build my following? People follow leaders. Are you being and showing up as a leader, or are we working 14 hours a day, stressed, afraid about our bills, and frantically running around, scrambling just to get something done, desperately asking for help for your customers? Like, I've got this, please buy this thing, right? Doesn't work. Just doesn't work.
And really, I think it's actually repulsive. The energy that you go to the table with when you're looking to show up on a Facebook Live just because you need something, or you're launching something because you want them to give you, and you're looking for the numbers. It's so repulsive to your clients. And you don't need to have some mega list to be able to have great conversions. And I think that's something that I learned very early on, adopting some of your principles in Business by Design, is I didn't need a crazy website. I didn't need a sales page. I didn't need fancy links. I didn't need messenger bots. I didn't need like all the things.
Yeah.
I just needed to show up authentically, connect, and come from my heart. And with that energy, I was a magnet. And it was like, there was like nothing I couldn't sell. And it's not that I was trying to sell them anything. I was like, there's this opportunity and I know you're telling me this and I want to help you with it.
Which is, again, build an audience,
right.
Sell them what they want.
Okay, sell them what they want is literally, that like blew my mind when I was like, so don't just offer them things and then discount it. Like, oh, this is my old.
Well, and most people are doing it backwards. They're sitting there going, "What's something I could sell? What's the product I want to create?"
Yeah.
And then they're trying, and then they come up with this great idea. They spend 6 months trying to build it and create it and all this stuff. And then they go, okay, who wants this? Who wants this? Who wants this? Do you want this? Do you want this? And they're jamming the peg in the square hole. They're trying to jam something down someone's throat they don't even say they want. Instead, you start with the audience, and you could just connect with one human being the way that Emily is describing here. And within 5 minutes, if you actually listened to them, you would know exactly what they want, and you could give them what they need. You could sell them what they need, but you just listen. People are constantly telling you what's wrong, what they're struggling with, what they're frustrated by, what they're complaining about. And that's where you can be their hero in a moment, in an instant. Now, this is one thing here that I want to add. So the thing here is relying on effort and hard work is just going to be the surefire route to burnout and ultimately bankruptcy. Okay. Because it's not sustainable. It's not scalable. Successful entrepreneurs are results centric. Okay. Mm-hmm. So they do not focus on hard work, like working hard. They rather focus on the hard things. And I want to talk about what that means really quickly, because people say, well, what does that mean? This is what I call the 5% of activities. The 5% of activities that are directly responsible for 95% of the results you want in your business. I believe we all intuitively know what those things are. The challenge is these things are outside of our comfort zone. So I want to give an example of what the hard things are. So I'm going to use Emily as an example. I know her relationship with money and abundance is amazing. But Emily, I want you to think of a really low dollar amount and a really high dollar amount.
Okay, so low dollar amount. Let's do $1.
Okay.
Let's do a high dollar amount, $50,000.
Okay, perfect. Now, if I asked anyone listening here to sell a coaching package or a service or something that you offer for $1 to one person, would that be perceived by you as easy or hard? Now, I'm assuming most people here are going to say, that's pretty easy. Right. You wouldn't want to do it because they don't want to give away their stuff for $1, but I'm not asking about whether you want to or not. I'm saying, would that be easy to do? Like, could you go to someone right now and be like, hey, I see you're struggling with this and I know I can help and I want to work with you for X amount of weeks and I want to like help you get rid of all these problems and offer these solutions and I'm just going to charge $1. Would that be easy? Yeah, it would be. Is that fair to say? Because I don't know your audience.
Oh yeah, I think I can imagine what's happening right now because I know I'm psychic, but for sure there's all saying yes. It would be so easy. Okay,
now I want you to imagine you did that exact same activity that I just asked you to do with $1. Now replace it and ask for $50,000.
Yeah. Yeah, all of a sudden people start restricting, their issues come up, their worth, their value, like, well, what is it okay? What does it mean about me?
Right. And they start to say simplistically, oh, that's hard. That's hard to ask for $50,000. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. Notice asking for $1 and asking for $50,000 is the exact same amount of energon cubes. It's the same action. You're just using one different word in your sentences. And this is what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying go charge $50,000 for an hour of coding. You totally can. I freaking love that. But what I'm pointing out here is that we tend to, most people, and tend is such an even weak word. What most struggling entrepreneurs are doing is they are averse and they're avoiding the hard, uncomfortable things like charging what they're worth.
Yes.
Asking for the sale, showing up on social media, raw, real, and authentic, doing the things that will build an audience and generate sales, like selling stuff, and they are instead distracting themselves by staying busy, busy on the little BS that Emily started to list out. All these things like, I got to have all the bots in place. I got to have an about me page on my website. Oh, my pictures aren't professional enough looking and they're not up to date. It's not the right branding colors anymore. That stuff does not matter.
Right.
It does not matter. And people will say, oh, yes, it does. But let's look at the facts. When we're measuring success in the business world, whether you love numbers or not, nothing happens until your customer hands you over money and says, let's frickin' do this, and you guys get to work. Mm-hmm. And you can have all the beautiful, most brilliant branding in the world, and none of that will do the uncomfortable work for you. You still have to ask for the sale. You still have to show up. You still have to say, this is what I charge. This is what I'm worth. This is what it's going to take. This is how this works. And that's what we're talking about. Those are the 5% of activities. Okay. Now, doesn't mean please have beautiful branding. Please have the most amazing photos. But if you think that's going to be your sales and marketing team for you, you're just lying to yourself. And it's because these things are uncomfortable.
Yeah. And actually,
oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's really the work that I do primarily with my clients, is shifting out of those beliefs, those mindsets, those programs that have been ingrained for so long or potentially lifetimes, get them out of there so they can really start to show up and serve, because none of that stuff really matters. It's just excuses or just stories that we're telling ourselves to play small.
100%. And this bleeds perfectly into the third wrong belief or wrong hardwiring that most people have. Most people are, and it used to be me. So all of these used to be me. Okay. I'm really speaking from my experience, and then I see it in struggling entrepreneurs, and then I help them with all this stuff. They are adverse to the unknown and uncertainty. Mm-hmm. We tend to, it's human nature, right, to avoid what is unknown and unproven and uncertain. We stay in the comfort zone of what we know, what's familiar, and what we can prove. Mm-hmm. So how many times have we been on the fence about what decision should I make? Which direction should I go? Which way should I launch this? Which product should I start with, right? We're asking those questions because we doubt the future, which Emily's just going to slap you on the wrist and say, where's your intuition?
Right. This is what I love to do, because it makes it makes decision making so much easier. Right. You don't have to deal with all the other if you're fully trusting and embracing one possibility, even if it's coming from a meditation or it's like it just shows up at your door, who are you not to take action on that? Why doubt it? Go for it.
Right. So the question we want to ask right now is, what is the very nature of entrepreneurship? What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? And I've asked a lot of people this, a lot of people that are very successful entrepreneurs. And my definition that I resonate with the most is an entrepreneur is someone who is able to see and create. Well, let's even make it bigger. See what no one else can see and create what's never been created. Mm. So to avoid the unknown and the uncertain is the exact opposite antithesis to entrepreneurship. So how many times have I seen people say things like, hey, I have an idea for a business. Is anybody else doing something like this? See, they're looking for proof. They don't want to go first.
Right.
They have this fear, and this will lead into the next one. Yeah. They have this fear that they're going to waste their time. Like it's going to be for nothing, but they don't realize how much time they're waiting in indecision, paralysis by analysis. Mm-hmm. You just get going. Yeah. Right? So the entrepreneur, the very nature of entrepreneurship is to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, to live in the unknown and the uncertain and the uncreated, the unproven. That's what we do. We create, people are supposed to call us crazy.
Right.
That's when you know you're on the right path. But if you think you're crazy, then you're going to continue to doubt yourself and you're going to continue to hold yourself back. It's like, yeah, I know I'm crazy, but that's my job. Like, I'm supposed to see and think the way no one else is thinking yet.
Yeah.
That's what makes you you. But if you want everyone else to go first, don't expect that you get the prize, that you get the results.
Yeah.
It's the risk we take, and it's a beautiful risk. That's what we signed up for, people. And that's what most people aren't getting. They're just like, they're only signing up for the parts of the business that, quite frankly, are rather selfish. And it's a wrong reason to start a business. The worst reason to start a business is, I want to start a business because I want to start a business. That's a worse reason to start a business, because great businesses are started when the reason or the why is bigger than you. When it's about actually solving a problem, when it's about shifting the way people think, feel, transforming lives. Not because you don't like your boss, not because you want to work less. No one will pay you for that. No one says, I love that she wants to work less. I love that she doesn't like her job and wants to work for herself. Here's some money. Like, let me just put a PayPal donate button on my website. And like, I've always seen those over the years, and I'm like, come on, who actually does that? That doesn't work.
No.
I mean, if it's a charity, it is, but not when it's like your business. Like, it's a business or a charity.
It's
and
like, aw, that's what it makes it feel like.
It does. Now that I say this, I want to actually go. And next time I see someone with that website, I'm going to actually go and donate. It'll probably be like, you're the first person who's ever done this. I'm like, I'm not surprised, but I will go donate. So live in this sea of unknown, because that's where possibility is.
Yeah. And I mean, that Jamesism, what got you here won't get you there. That was like this mantra in my mind. And, it turned out like a year later, after, it was after reading Joe Dispenza's book about breaking the habit of being yourself. It was like, all of a sudden I realized I had been doing this thing where in the back of my mind, it was your voice, what got you here won't get you there. And what that meant to me was, everything you're doing, what you've done so far, stop it. Knock it off. Don't do any of those things. Don't listen to those people. Don't believe those thoughts, because where you're going isn't here. Unless you want to stay here, broke, not connecting with people, having weird, uncomfortable conversations with relationships and friendships, or what you see yourself is helping more people and expanding and becoming this somebody bigger and better. I had to just knock off who I was being and trust fully in and embracing in that, leaping into the unknown. And yeah. I think I crave it now. It's like we have these senses in our body where we have like fight or flight, and we start priming ourselves to take action. And instead of taking action, I think what most people do is they retract and they go, well, is it okay? Did somebody do this? What do you think? What do you think? Did somebody else? Maybe I'll follow somebody else's business model. What's not working for me? Maybe I'll just keep trying and finding other places to put my energy.
That's a big thing too. I see is people, because they don't want to do the new, the innovative, which is entrepreneurship, they'll just say, well, it worked for Emily, so I'll do what Emily's doing. And you go, no, that's not why it worked for Emily. What worked is that Emily did what was innovative at the time and did what was right for her. So what's right for her is not what's right for you. And that's a dangerous thing. I did exactly what she did. I did the exact niche, the same product. I even stole some of their copy, and it's not working for me. Because copying doesn't work. Being second. And I'm not saying you have to be first to be successful. I'm just saying for a lot of people, what made it work for them was their innovation, was their out of the box thinking. And then you're just copying. What happens when you take a copy of a copy of a copy? It's just the diluted version of the original. So for me, when we started our podcast, Mind Your Business, that was 2.5 years ago. That was, for a lot of people, that was the first time they're hearing spirituality and mindset in the context of entrepreneurship and business. That was me adding and adding new and uncertain. And launching that podcast was one of the scariest things I've ever done in business, because it was so outside my comfort zone, so uncertain. And it's been, ironically, like proportionately to the fear, the most successful thing and the best decision I've ever done in my business. So we tend to say fear is bad, avoid the fear, doubt means don't, right? If I doubt it, don't do it. And it's exactly opposite. And that takes us into the next one. And this is this concept of, or just this idea of problems. Struggling entrepreneurs make the mistake of thinking that problems are problems. Like it's a problem that you have a problem and that you shouldn't have problems. That is the only problem. Even to label something as a problem is an interpretation. There is no such thing as a problem.
Right.
It's problems are illusions. And we're going to get to the next one, which is failure is an illusion. So I'll talk about both those. But think about this for a second. When you're adverse to problems and you're trying to avoid problems, you're spending so much wasted energy on what's inevitable. That's like saying, I don't want the sun to set today. It better not set. I'm going to do everything I can to avoid the sun setting. There's nothing you can do to avoid that sun from setting. And there is nothing you can do from having what we perceive currently as problems in your business. It is the nature of business, and it is what your like top superpower should be. I call myself a professional problem solver, but I don't like to use the word problems, right? They're opportunities, they're challenges, they're new games, they're new projects. That's all it ever is. But if you look, the reason why entrepreneurs are so successful and are so far and few between is because society as a whole latches onto something as being wrong or bad. Problem! Yeah. Something's wrong in the world. And the entrepreneur goes, I could solve this.
Yeah.
And then they do, and then they build a successful business. So you're either looking at focusing your attention on problems and why it's wrong and why it's bad, or you're doing what the successful entrepreneurs do, and they say, where's the opportunity here? Where can I help? How can I help? Successful entrepreneurs do not see problems as problems. They see them as possibilities. And if you can't see the possibility, the good, the gain, the benefit out of whatever problem internally in your own business or your own life or in the world or in the marketplace, if you can't see the possibility in a problem, you aren't thinking hard enough. It's just lazy thinking. You're being too stubborn. I want to hold on to this problem, and gosh darn it, it's a principle, and I want to be really angry and upset and let the world know this is a problem and this isn't right.
Yeah.
But you just keep focusing your energy. And if we want to talk about the energy conversation, you get what you focus on, what you put out, you get back.
Yeah.
So you're going to just get more problems attracted into your life.
Well, I think people are also switching the word problem for feeling stuck or overwhelmed.
Yes.
And I hear that all the time. And it's a little bit of a tough love conversation that we have, which, I've done Facebook Lives and I'm like, okay, how many people have felt stuck or overwhelmed just this week? And everybody's raising their hand. Yes, 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 yes. And it's like, okay, well, who do you think put you there? Who stuck you?
Yeah. Who's holding you down right now? Like, where's this pressure coming from? It's our own thinking. And it goes back to this premise. It's like, most people are just not wired for entrepreneurship. We can rewire ourselves. And this has been like neurologically proven that we can, change the way we think. But we put ourselves there. I kind of look at it as like, there's, this, what you want. Well, it's the word resistance, right? And Emily and I have talked about it. The word resistance. The definition that I love is there's what you want, the results you're after, and then resistance is there when your beliefs and thinking are counter to what you want. It's like the classic example is, I want success, but I'm afraid of failure. That fear of failure is the resistance to success. So if any part of your being does not go 100% towards the goal or the outcome of success, if even 1% of you is going in the other direction, but there's a but there, right? But I'm afraid, but I don't want failure, I'm resisting failure, then you are in resistance and you are out of alignment. And the more, I believe that the more out of alignment you are in your thinking and your being, the more stuck, confused, and overwhelmed you're going to feel. And so doing more, working harder, working longer is not going to get you unstuck. It's like when you're in quicksand, if you just pedal harder, you're going to definitely get out of the quicksand. I had an episode on my podcast where I almost drowned surfing. And the reason I almost drowned is because I got pounded by a really big wave. And the more it wouldn't let me up, the more I kept fighting for it. It took all my oxygen out, and I literally went past the point of like, oh, I don't think I can breathe anymore. And it was like the scariest thing I've ever done. When you just let go and you let go of that resistance, it's like the muddy, murky water and the soil separate, and the yucky parts just float to the bottom, and clarity begins to appear. But when you keep fighting for and focusing on and talking about but I don't want this. And anytime you're just saying, but what if I fail? And what if they don't like this? And this is what's going to happen. And I don't have the money for this. And I don't have the time for this. And of course you're going to be stuck, but you're the one who's sticking yourself.
Right. And saying you're stuck and saying that's a problem is actually just making an excuse for yourself to stop.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
I'm not gonna do it anymore. I'm stuck. I'm stuck.
No. Yeah.
Give myself permission. Look, see, I'm stuck. I can't do anything else. See?
Right. I mean, it's us in those moments. We are not actually taking responsibility for our lives because someone else must have stuck us there. Yeah, exactly. Well, so I want to talk about the last one really quickly, and then I'll open it up to anything else because I know I'm going really long, but I'm trying to get through it as fast as I can.
Okay.
This idea of failure. I said people say like, I'm so afraid to fail. I'm afraid of failure. What if I fail? Blah, 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 blah. Just like problems, failures are an illusion. You cannot point to failure. Sure I can, James. This happened to me, right? Okay, but failure is an interpretation. I have stories of people who were laid off or fired, and at the time, they were like freaking out, and that would be called a failure. And then, of course, they look back in hindsight, because it's always 20/20, and say, getting fired was the best thing that ever happened to me. So who's right? The version of them, as soon as they got fired, who said, this is the worst thing that's ever happened? Or the version of them that says this was the best thing that ever happened? It's all interpretation. Failure is an interpretation. If you want to be successful, we need to eradicate the word failure from your vocabulary. There is no failure, so why use this illusionary mirage of a word? Because all we're going to do if you keep doing it is you're going to internalize the failure and say, it was a failure, therefore I'm a failure. And the problem is even though that failure happened in the past, you take you with you in the present, and now the next project you're creating from the place of, oh yeah, and I'm a failure, trying to fix failure, and guess what? You will perpetuate the failures.
Yeah.
And then you'll go, oh, look, another failure, and you will reinforce, I knew it, I am a failure, and then by the third time, you've got nothing left, and you're either going to be stuck and overwhelmed, or you're going to be so defeated that you'll either say even worse things about yourself, or you'll just make up your mind and say, this doesn't work, this can't work, business is too tough, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to go pack up and get a job again. Okay. And when you go get the job, you know that you're just working for the successful entrepreneur. And you're just going to be making them money, right? We don't want that. So here's the simple thing. Okay. First, it's two things. First of all, there is no failure. It's just an interpretation. Second thing is, whenever we go after something, we create like a game, right? And let's say it's like, if I can use a sports analogy, it's like the Super Bowl. So the goal or game of the Super Bowl is to score more points than the opposing team. If you score more points, which the way you score more points, the strategy for that game is taking the football, the pigskin, and putting it in the end zone of the other team. The more times you do that, the more points you get. If you get more points than the other team, then you win the game. Okay? But here's the thing. We're going around calling everything we do a failure because we didn't win the game. But who created the game in the first place?
Right.
So we're going to get around creating a game, and it's usually something we've never done before. Like, I'm going to do my first promotion with my first product, and I want to sell 20 units. And then you didn't sell 20. Maybe you only sold one. Maybe you didn't sell any. Maybe you sold, 19. And then you go, failure! It's like, but you created the game.
Right.
So we're just like illusions on top of illusions, right? And so that's the first thing to keep in mind is like, there is no failure and there is no actual like mayor of dictation of what is failure and what is not success. It's only you in your own mind anyways of what the measurement is. I've had so many people who look at a goal and they're halfway through a project and they're just like, every time I look at this goal, it makes me feel like crap. And I said, doesn't matter. It's just a number on a piece of paper on your whiteboard. Just get rid of it. As soon as they get rid of it, they're like, I feel so much better. Now I can just go and play and do and create. And then they end up surpassing their goal. Like it's crazy because we just create this thing in our mind. This is the number I need to have in order to be successful. And then we put this whole attachment and meaning and energy behind it of, well, what if I don't hit that number? Totally. What if I don't get that? Right? Story. It's all BS. Okay. So here's what I want to leave you with when it comes to that. When you set a goal, when you set a game, when you say you're going to do something, in reality, in 3D reality, if you went and took those actions, you're taking actions, which, by the way, must have things that are outside of your control. You do not have control whether someone on the other side of the planet pulls out their purse, their wallet, gets their credit card and types it in and gives you money. You can influence that, but you have no control over that. They are the only one that controls those actions. So anytime we're creating a game, part of that game includes doing things that will have others participate with you that you have no control over anyways. So we're trying to control all of it, and it's got to be this certain way, but you have no control over whether someone pays you or not. You have some influence over, no control. So here's what's going to happen from now on. Is going to help you so much on your journey. Every game, every goal, everything you set out to do, as long as you do it, one of two things is going to happen. And neither of those is a failure. You're either going to get the result that you wanted. James, I want to do my first thing. I want to get 10 sales. I want my first 10 customers in my group coaching program. Okay. You're either going to get that result or better, right? Or you're going to get the results you wanted, or you're going to get the lesson you needed. That's it. It's plain and simple. It's that simple. But we don't do that. When you're upset, when you're angry, when you're disappointed, when you're depressed and blah, 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 you have not agreed to what I just said. You've said, no, I didn't. There's no lesson there. I failed and people don't like me and I'm not cut out for this and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So the way I look at business is that this is one giant game. I actually look at it like a video game, and there are levels in the video game. And to get to the next level, there is a lesson that you need. And right now, everybody listening, if you are in business or you're starting business or you're thinking about business, there is a game that you are playing, and there is a lesson for you. And if you would like to progress that next level, you must learn that lesson.
I love that. And I think too, what I'm feeling too is that some people, because they're afraid of the failure, they don't even take that initial step to try to get the goal. They stop. And actually had a client who had this huge breakthrough because she was realizing that she wasn't taking that leap because she was afraid of failure. And then it was the memory game. Remember that time when you were little and you failed? This memory, this failure, look, you're repeating yourself. Look, you'll be a failure. And what had to happen, the conversation that had to happen was, when you're playing the game of memory, you're matching cherries to cherries, not cherries to baskets. And your ego is trying to make all these matches. Look, remember that time? You're doing it again. Same thing. You'll get the same result. This is a failure. You'll be a failure again. Better not do it. But there's no matching. They don't match. These are two separate things. And in fact, let me show you a whole bunch of cherries that line up and say, like, this is what you've done that's been a success. You did this. You pushed yourself out of your comfort level. You took a leap of faith and you had this amazing result. Remember that time? But you can't remember that when your brain is so busy on focusing you on the fear of failure.
The negative. Totally. Yeah.
So I love that. And I think you said you can't, control people taking out their wallet, but you also can't control what people think. And I think a lot of people stop themselves. They have this fear of failure, but they also have this underlying fear of what people are going to think of them if they put themselves out there.
Well, the thing is they're already thinking things of you. You got people in your life right now that they have their opinions and judgments and criticisms of you because you're not putting your stuff out there. You keep talking about this business, you keep talking about this dream, and those people around you are going, there she goes talking about it again. So everyone's already thinking about you, judging you, et cetera. I know people. We have a post on my Facebook page right now that a lot of people don't agree with. Like the latest comment I read, I think yesterday, was like, "You're an effing idiot." My response was, "Well, that's one argument." It doesn't matter. It says nothing about me. I don't need to tell you guys this, but what others say about you and what others think about you, what others choose to see in you has nothing to do with you, but it says everything about who they are. What do you say about the person who always sees the good in everybody? Think about that.
Yeah.
So if someone has the ability and the constant discipline, and it's easy and natural that it isn't even a discipline, to see the good in everyone, and we look at that person and say, man, they're just such a beautiful soul. They're always finding the good in others. Okay, then what is true about the person that always finds the bad in everybody? Who's always looking for the negative, the yucky angle, like, oh, this is just scam or blah, blah, you know? There's a person that's always on edge saying, oh, you're just trying to take advantage of me. Like, well, what do we say about that person? Again, it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them.
Yeah. James, these have been so monumental, so powerful. I've had such a blast going over them and laughing at my own times of being in that position and getting to reflect back from clients' experiences growing. I really appreciate this time that you've given for my audience to be able to get these lessons. And I'm so happy to be able to share these messages and to really start to expand their thoughts and beliefs and start to see where maybe they've been falling into these common beliefs. It's so helpful. I just really appreciate it. Is there any last thing that you want to share or that you want to give people as a last little takeaway?
I think the only thing that's coming up for me is, like, I think we've just scratched the surface, and my overarching, I always get that mixed up. Overarching, I don't know. The big message that I have is that your business is a reflection of you, and as we grow, it's an internal growth. And for me, it's been a journey of letting go. It's not adding on. It's not, I'm not good enough. Let me add all these things in my life and learn all these things to enhance my worth, my value, my skills, blah, blah, blah. It's been the exact opposite. Everything I talked about here today is starting a letting go process. It's not adding on new beliefs. It's letting go of the ones that don't serve us, letting go of the fears, letting go of the worthiness question that's in question, letting go of the worries and the stresses and the anxieties. And the more we strip that away, I think over the years, personally, I can speak that the more I found that there was that, like, perfect potentiality of just, like, go out there, be and do and create, that I think we're all looking for. And so this has been the, like, working out. You don't just go to the gym once and do the workout and say, I'm in shape, I'm good, I can just check health off my to-do list. I think this is the actual journey for the entrepreneur. It's so much less about the doing in the physical world. There's still stuff to do, like I'm doing this interview right now, but look at what attributed to this interview happening, like how Emily and I have connected and fostered that connection, and how she shows up for you guys to attract an audience. And now it's just like, hey, you want to do a call? Like, boop. Okay. Right. And I can do this and she can do this because we're letting go that which gets in the way. Yeah. That which is not true about us too, by the way. So keep it up.
Thank you. And for anybody who is familiar or even not really familiar with James, I would highly, highly encourage you to check out his amazing video series. If you thought this was good, like, this video series will blow your mind. It is so good. It's filled with, his personality, his humor, but also so much knowledge. And I know that everybody who's watched it, myself included, I've had takeaways and ahas just by watching it, and I know that you will too. It's so powerful, and I'm so glad that whether you choose to watch the entire series or you just watch one of the videos, you'll get something out of it. And I want to just honor your time and your space, but encourage you to do what's calling you. I know you're here for a reason. You maybe watched this whole video for a reason. Something about James really resonates with you, like it did for me. And if it's anything like it was for me, it's an answer to a prayer.
Mm.
And I want to give you just my blessing to say, look, you can always reach out to me if you have questions, or if you want to learn more about James, start listening to his podcast. At the very least, it's so good. But anyway, I'm going to keep on rambling, but thank you so much, James. And I know my audience appreciates it so much. I'll post links so they can find your video series. They can find how to get in touch with you, watch or listen to your podcast, and all the good stuff.
Awesome. And thank you again, Emily, for having me. Thank you guys if you're still listening to this, you made it to the end.
Yay, you did it.
And I really appreciate that. So thank you for listening what I have to say and what I have to share.
Awesome.